Virginia, Mr. Hurt for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chair Yellen, thank you very much for appearing before our committee. Welcome, and look forward to your tenure. Obviously, we recognize in Virginia's 5th District how important your task is, and we appreciate your commitment to that task. To tell you a little bit about our district, it's a very rural district in central Southside Virginia. It is a district that historically was dependent upon textiles, furniture, tobacco. Still is a very large agricultural producer in our state and in our nation. But we've seen hard times with the changes especially in manufacturing, and I know as an economist you're well aware of the terrible effects that has had in many parts of our country, and Southside Virginia is no exception. We've had, over the years, in the last 10 years, we've had unemployment in parts of our district as high as 25%. So you can imagine what we really want are jobs, and what we want is a booming economy. And so I guess one thing that strikes me that and I think that we hear it on the other side, we've heard it a few times this morning, and in fact I think maybe you've even used this word of the word of inequality, talking about I think income inequality, and is that something that we need to focus on? Is that something the Federal Reserve needs to specifically focus on? I would suggest to you that obviously my view is that we need to focus on economic opportunity for all people. For everybody. We want to see that prosperity. And I would suggest that at least what contributes in part to that inequality are one-size-fits-all, top-down policies that come out of Washington that make it more difficult for people in rural and Southside Virginia to make it, whether it be an energy policy on Keystone, for instance. One that is the Keystone policy that has come out of this administration has been one that has been an obstacle to jobs, not promoted jobs. If you look at the President's health care law, again, we see more people in our district who are losing full-time jobs, going to part-time work. That obviously very difficult for my constituents as a consequence. And I guess what I would ask as you take on this new very important responsibility, can you talk a little bit about your view of the rulemaking that comes from the Federal Reserve? If you look at the Volcker Rule, for instance, and you see that was a rule certainly in the beginning that was designed to get at the biggest banks, but because of the TRUPS issue, inadvertently perhaps ended up affecting a lot of smaller banks. Can you talk about this the one-size-fits-all mentality that I feel pervades Washington, and how that affects our community banks all across Main Street in Virginia's 5th District, and leads to the inequality, let's say, of the access to credit from our community banks?
Well, as a general philosophy, don't agree with one size fits all. I think we ought to be designing regulation that's appropriate for each institution we regulate, and community banks clearly do not pose the kind of systemic risks to financial stability that the larger banking organizations do, and the kind of supervision and regulation that's appropriate for those systemically important banking institutions. I think we really want to do our very best to make sure that community banks aren't burdened with all that regulation. And I know we meet regularly with community bankers, and we've felt it particularly important to do so coming out of the financial crisis. We supervise them. We know they're different. We want to listen to their concerns and understand them, and we are doing our very best to listen and to try to tailor an appropriate set of capital requirements and other regulations.
And from the standpoint as supervisor, the supervisory role that you play, likewise, we hear from our community banks from time to time that sometimes it feels like there isn't the responsiveness that is needed. There is micromanagement that prevents them from being able to find a meeting of the minds with them and the customer. and that's caused by the supervisory relationship. And so I hope, as my time expires here, that you all will continue to make that a top priority
I pledge to do
at
so.
Federal Reserve.
I
Thank you.
pledge to do so, absolutely.